Hello, hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Grow Wealthy Grooming. I am your host, River Lee. I'm the founder of the Savvy Groomer, where I teach you to go from being burnt out, broke, and broken to healthy, wealthy, and happy. For those of you guys that are the first time here, I want to welcome you. Please feel free to subscribe, like, or add any comments. And this really does help us grow this channel. And as you guys know, I want to help you guys be the very best that you can be. We have lots of new free content. We have hundreds of hours here, right, on YouTube. And we also have our brand new podcast. Yay! We're getting there. We're coming along. But let's go ahead while we're here, go into today's topic. Bum, bum, bum. I want to have a conversation about Millennial and Gen Z Groomers. And in full, clarity, I am not feeling my best. I don't know if I'm just run down a little bit. I've been a little stressed out. You can hear a little tickle in my throat. It's not COVID. I've had COVID, but I'm just not feeling my best. So if I lose my voice, I apologize in advance. So let's go ahead and start talking about Millennial and Gen Z Groomers. And I think this is going to be a fair conversation, not an attacking conversation. Because I honestly believe there's a lot of confusion around, a lot of old school groomers or groomers that have been grooming forever. And they're just confused on a lot of things. And I thought it would be really fun to just talk about them a little bit. I'm trying to move this out of the way. So I wanted to see what age range a millennial was, because I personally do not identify as a millennial, but as someone born in the 80s, I am in fact a millennial. So a millennial is born from 1980 to 1995, and Gen Z is 96 to the early mid 2000s, which is crazy to me. So these are people who are going to be about 42 to probably right around what? So they're born probably in their teens. So let's say 18 to 42. That's a good chunk of our grooming. Oops, sorry guys. Let me move this back over so you can see my lovely, lovely face. Oh man, can't even find me. Oh, there we go. Boop. Ta-da. Sorry about that. So that's it, right? So that's going to be the bulk of the grooming shop owners and the groomers really coming in to step up and take over for where the retired groomers are going, right? Most of our groomers that, we really shouldn't even have many baby boomers. Well, you look at baby boomers age range. What years were they born in? So they were born from 1946 to 1964. My math is terrible because I feel like that's older than I think it is, but I will double check my math. So if we are in 2022, we're going to minus that with 1964. So those are people about 58 till, we'll say between 58 to 70 and change, okay? So that's a big age range. And, that means our I believe it's called Generation X is the people in between it. Hey, Candace, great to see you here live. So why are these generational situations different? As a millennial, I think that I have a very different upbringing than my mother did, and she had a significantly different upbringing than my grandparents, right? And one of the main things I look at as a millennial versus my mom is that I was told there is no option other than to go to college. And that's what I did, right? I went to college and someone saved me, thankfully, because I was going to be hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt and then go start a career. We were promised that if we went to college, everything would just work out all right. And as we know, with the student loan crisis, that's not the truth, right? We were told that you are nothing without a college degree, which we all know is not true. But it's the societal pressure of that. And I think it's significantly different than my mom or my grandmother. My grandmother and my mother both have master's degrees. But, they've never made nearly the amount of money that I have made. They value education. They value that, right? That having a master's degree over being a small business owner, which is always very ironic to me because I was like, well, I make double what you guys have made. But it's a level of respect that we just don't get. So my grandparents, every time we have a family gathering, they always ask me when I'm going to do a real job, right? And then when I was more insecure, and I would be dating men when I had my business, and I would date these guys that were in master's programs or even doctorate programs, but they had never actually made any money. They had actually never created anything. They'd gone right from high school to going and getting a degree. Is there anything wrong with that? No. But on the hierarchy of social importance, I would say his family saw me as a liability and not as a breadwinner, not as somebody to be respected, not somebody to be admired, right? So growing up in a place where, we are told girl power, you can do anything that you put your mind to. Don't settle for being the garbage man. Make sure you go to college. We have a lot of people who have a lot of childhood wounds of feeling like they can do everything and they're never going to do enough. So if you are hiring these people or managing these people, you have to consider that, right? What is their love language? Is it words of affirmation? Is it gift giving? Is it acts of service? Right? Not once, but 3 times in my adult life, I should say young adult, but to adult, I have seen things go very, very wrong. Things that we thought would never be a big issue became an issue, right? So first, I came out of high school not long after we ended up having the housing crash. And where I was living, we had a 50% foreclosure rate. Most people were underwater. I watched my family lose their home. I watched a lot of people I knew losing their homes. And your home was supposed to be this perfectly safe thing to do, right? That's what you do, right? You buy a house and it makes you money, and then you can sell that house and you can use that for retirement. Right? So that happened. We also watched people's retirements, things that they were told, just put money away into retirement, work hard, you'll get pensions, or you get a retirement, you'll get a 401k, and you'll be okay, right? And you'll have Social Security. My grandparents get a lot of money from Social Security, but they've also worked long W-2 lives, right? So we start to see the instability in that. There are so many people that had safe work jobs, right? These safe government jobs that were being laid off, even the military, right? So we watch that issue and that decline. And then again, here we're seeing the student loan crisis, right? And that's leading to a lot of issues with jobs. When I was growing up, and again, when I say growing up, I want to say my early teens to mid 20s, I remember there were no jobs, and I would just try everything I could. Now, in the pet industry, there were always jobs, but I watched a lot of people in my life just kind of suffer and be unable to make ends meet. I knew a lot of people I went to high school with that couldn't move out of their parents' house. You just didn't have the money to do it. And then I knew people that completely, got screwed over because they had this whole life planned out and it didn't work out. So why is this really important with millennials if you're going to either work with them or manage them or hire them? Is that just telling them to work hard for the sake of working hard and it all works out is not going to work with them. We have seen our parents lose everything they've worked hard for. We watched them lose their house. We've watched them lose their marriage. We've watched them lose their pension. We watched them sit there and shrug. For those of the people that ended up holding on to their houses, now they're in a better situation. Right now, the people I know whose parents held on to houses, they're in a better situation. But they're almost the lucky ones. So why is that important? Because when you're telling them basically to be a rat on a wheel, like come in, groom a lot of dogs a day, and then just go home, they don't feel like their lives matter. And I feel like when you lose your job, when you lose your house, as somebody who has been homeless, if you're somebody who's been really impoverished, you can be happy in poverty or be happy when you don't have these things. But the way you do that is to start valuing other things. And so millennials, and way more so Gen Zers, value free time, ease, right? You'll often hear people say millennials are lazy. And I don't think that's really fair. I think that, being raised to being raised to believe work smarter, not harder, right? Has meant that you have a generation of people who are like, okay, what is the smartest way to work? What is the easiest way to work? Why do I want to work in a shop that requires me to groom 8 to 10 dogs a day and doesn't have any upgrades and has aggressive dogs or dogs that are not on a 4-week schedule or dogs that are over 20 pounds when I can just do this? Right? And it's funny because it's almost met with this like, oh, they're lazy. It's like, well, tell me logically why they should want what you have to offer. And even more so at Gen Z. Gen Z had, my sister's a Gen Z, and I look at, or she might be on the cusp. It's amazing to watch her not be willing to put herself last as far as her work life, right? It's amazing because it's something I hadn't even integrated fully, but she has. And on top of it, my mother and my grandparents, like they really believe that you should just work and work and work and work and work and one day you'll retire. And, millennials, we were like, nope, we really want to make a good life for ourselves, make enough money. And we also want to turn around and actually enjoy that life, right? We don't want staycations. We don't want to just stay at home. I don't want to be this small person, right? We all knew the rich people. Like I grew up lower middle class. I wouldn't quite say poor because, we were never we didn't have much money, but we did have a house. Like we did have stability. We didn't have electricity a lot of times, but it is what it is. So, our parents would send us home. I would get my sister and my brother up for school, get them ready. We'd take the bus. I'd come home. And when I came home, my mom wouldn't be home for hours. So we just fed ourselves. We took care of ourselves. We never really were parented. Hey, Brittany, great to see you. And so we have a generation of people who really weren't parented and weren't really given any life skills. And we're told, just do this and it'll all work out, just to see that whole thing backfire. You're going to have to try to figure out what you have to offer that they want. Candace is saying, my dream is to have groomers groom 5 dogs a day, 4 days a week, and make $100,000 a year. And it's very possible. We teach people like that all the time, how to set up those businesses. Okay? A lot of it comes down to we need to make that line in the sand. And I do think it's the younger generation of groomers who's like, you know what? I'm not willing to work 6 days a week, 10-hour days. I'm not doing it. There are so many young groomers who are like, you know what? Yeah, I have the back to groom these giant doodles, but I'm not going to. Lots of groomers saying, I could groom all these aggressive dogs, but I don't really want to. It is our opportunity to, instead of fight millennials and fight Gen Zers who are coming off lazy, but to embrace it. A lot of you older groomers are going to have to accept the fact that this high volume business model that even I've owned is less appealing. It's less appealing to the consumer. It's less appealing to the workers. And it's not as profitable as it used to be. There aren't a lot of groomers who want to groom 10 plus dogs a day. Even with a bather, they don't want to do it. And we had groomers grooming 2 dogs an hour, and it was a hustle, and it's chaotic. And a lot of people, especially after this pandemic, want peace, want stability, want easy. So if your business model is we're going to have 50 dogs in the shop, it's going to be all open, so there's going to be barking dogs, there's going to be people coming in and out. It's going to be this overwhelming, stressful situation. And then you're shocked you can't hire somebody. Maybe consider, who is this person that you're offering this job to, and why would they want it? And I'm not saying that, money isn't a great option. I'm not saying your business model is wrong. But when you're talking to these people, ask yourself, if this wasn't your shop, would you work here? Right? And Gen Z has even gotten further. They're like, you know what? I don't want to work 6 days a week. I only want to work 4 days a week. And you know what? I want to work 8-hour days, and I want to work between 32 and 36 hours. And that's it. And that doesn't make them lazy. It just means that they value freedom, flexibility, and their personal life more. And they value their mental health more. I remember I cut my hand wide open, and I was in the shop. And I just super glued my hand together. Right? I can't tell an employee to do that, obviously. But I think the days of groomers being that way is falling to the wayside, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't really want my groomer to slice their hand open and then super glue it. I wouldn't want that for somebody, right? And I think that's what we have to start considering. Instead of calling millennial groomers lazy, instead of calling Gen Z groomers lazy, ask yourself, are they making better choices? And why are we so mad that they are putting themselves first? It's not their business. We can't expect people to run our business the way we would run it, because otherwise they would just run their own. Right? But you expect someone who's also parented themselves to know things that you know, right? And that is a common theme for everyone that I coach on building businesses, and they want to have a constant influx of millennial and Gen Z groomers. Anything you want them to know, you have to train them. Because either they were not parented at all, or they had a parent who told them how to do something and they don't know how to do it any other way. Now, that's a great generalization. There's millennials and Gen Zs of all kinds, right? And I'm generally talking about Americans and the culture that we're living in today, right? With social media, everyone is their own brand. And that can be a real problem when you're managing and running a business with these people. You don't want a groomer to grow their own brand. You want them to be a member of your team, right? And that can create problems. And that's another consideration for yourself. Do you want somebody who just wants to come in and groom, and they're not going to go above and beyond? They're just going to do their job and then go home? Or do you want somebody who's going to go above and beyond with the knowledge that that go-getter is probably going to get bored in your business, unfortunately? Because the person who can go in every day, groom the dogs, right? Every day is a new set of dogs. You can't get ahead. You can't really get behind, right? It's like being a cog in a factory. Now, people can love it. There can be artistry. There can be excitement in all of that. But the reason a lot of people leave is because they learn everything they want to learn, and then there's nothing more than that. And more so than anything, millennial and Gen Zs value freedom, flexibility, right? And a work-life balance. So if you are currently running a grooming business and you have a high volume shop, ask yourself, how are you going to change with the times? these power groomers are few and far between. It's so interesting. Like, as I'm hitting about 15 years in the grooming industry, I have seen less and less and less power groomers. Before, every shop had at least 2 power groomers. And now, most of them don't have any. And their business model really is designed on these power groomers, because the people that aren't going to groom 10 dogs, they're going to want to groom 5. How are you going to be profitable with them? You can't just keep adding more staff. Candace is saying not lazy, just smarter, as in work smarter, more efficient, and not harder for long. Absolutely. Absolutely, Candace. And that's it. But that means you're going to have to change if you're going to run this business. And remember, having these high volume brick and mortar shops, is it profitable? You can absolutely make it profitable, but you're going to rely on staff. And if the Great Resignation has taught us anything, it's that money's not enough, right? Even if a groomer makes $100,000, that doesn't guarantee that they're going to stay, right? It depends on what they value. And it's important for you to know what your staff values and hire people that have values that you appreciate, right? So for instance, I don't care if my staff were to show competitively, whether that's in dog shows or at grooming competitions. It doesn't add any value to my business. And if anything, it's an inconvenience. Having someone who wants to travel often, having somebody that, is going to sit there and I'm like, okay, that dog is good enough. And they say no, and they want to take more time to really, finish that dog. That actually costs me money. It's actually a negative, right? But at the same time, the groomer I would want in my shop, I want somebody who can sit there and do work. Just sit there and constantly, just do the same thing over and over and over again and be happy as a clam, and that's not someone like me. But my best groomers were the kind of people that would just enjoy, grooming and doing the same haircut. It was like cha-ching, 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 right? It's the same person who would be happy to bag groceries at Walmart. The same person who would be happy to do simple, easy things over and over and over again. I have a very good friend like that. She goes home and she knits with her cat and her husband. And they're very happy people. I have friends that are like that, where, like I said, I have another friend that, she goes home and she just watches TV. She goes into work, she does her work, and she goes home and she watches TV. Those are great employees because they're not rushing out to go partying the night away. They're not thinking about how they're going to run a business better than yours. They're really happy to just be. And, it's harder and harder to find those people in Millennial and Gen Z, because instead of being instilled with values of focus on love and family and that, we were told you can be anything. And if you're not, the president, then, who are you? Right. We were always told, I remember being at Burger King and my mom being if you don't go to college, you're going to be here your whole life. Right. I wouldn't be shocked if people were told that about my job as a groomer. Right. If you don't go to college, you're going to end up as a dog groomer. Little do they know how much we make and how much fun our job is. Candace is saying, I used to be impressed by power groomers. I used to be one. Yeah. I don't think it isn't wise at all. Yeah, I don't think being a power groomer is good for anybody. I think it sets unrealistic expectations against other employees or the business. I think that it's a great way to make mistakes and accidentally cut a pet, or have the groomer get hurt. I think that if you are a power groomer, you can get a great salary or hourly from a business, but do I think it's going to work out long term? No. And I think it's really hard to be a power groomer and keep doing those numbers when you own your own business, because there's nothing else you can do. Even if you could do 5 dogs in 5 hours, right? And then get all the paperwork and check in and check out and this and that. It's awesome. But do you want to groom 10 or you want to groom 5, right? Why do 10 when I could do 5 and still make a living? I recently heard, and I wish I had saved the audio, that there was a study done, and after you hit about $60,000 a year, you actually don't go up that much in lifestyle comparatively to how much you're working. And I thought that was really smart to think about, right? Because really, if I'm going to be working, let's say, if I can work four days a week, 8 hours a day, groom my dogs, make enough money, and they're all regular, good dogs, why would I leave that? But if I work at a shop where I'm just drowning in dogs, it's chaotic, it's always quick, faster, faster, I'm probably not going to stay. And people are always shocked at how physical our job is, right? Again, we were taught, I remember more so than my Gen Z friends, this very rub some dirt in it kind of mentality. And my mom and my grandparents are way more rub some dirt in it. You don't cry, you don't admit hurt, you don't go to therapy. My dad, who was an alcoholic, used to call, he would keep Jack Daniels, and he would call it Dr. Daniels, sick joke, but that's what it was. He didn't express his feelings. He didn't work through his mental health. He just drank his problems away. And I think all of us growing up in families like that or having friends whose parents are like that, we don't want to repeat that pattern. And so we're not going, if we need a mental health day, we're more likely to tell the boss. And when you have your business, basically, if someone doesn't show up, everything collapses. That's not a good way to run your business. So I just want to talk about that really quickly. I've done another rant where we talked about this more too. But I do think that shifting our businesses long term to accommodate these differences in generations is inevitable. We have to do it. I don't think that there's going to be a lot of businesses that are that power groomer shop brick and mortar. I think between the rise in rents, the rise in people trying to cut out stress in their lives, people looking for simpler lives, I just don't see them being around forever. I do think we need to figure out, okay, what is the next branch? How do we start making pets more comfortable, groomers more comfortable, and then also charge enough that we can make a living and make a comfortable living? There are a lot of millennials, a lot of Gen Z who live with family because they cannot afford to live. I just watched the person I'm in an Airbnb, but next to me, they just left their apartment because their apartment went from $1,800 to $2,600 a month. It's a big jump. And I don't blame them for leaving, right? Like, it's a situation where they just don't want to pay for that. And I don't blame them. But it's happening. It's happening everywhere. And people are leaving and they're moving and they're shifting because people are leaving places that are expensive because it's not about the money. The reason you would stay in Boston, New York, LA is because there was all of this opportunity to make more money. And COVID taught people that, do you want closeness with your family? Do you want to come home in a reasonable time? And do you want the simple pleasures of life? Or do you want the status, the money, and that comes with the grind, right? I saw so many people that used to take hour and a half long commutes each way decide that their only option was to work from home. and that's the tough part, is that they don't want to do that anymore. So if we're going to ask groomers to do that, we have to start attracting them. We have to start creating this business. And if you are a boomer groomer and you are looking to sell your business in the near future, and by near future, I mean the next 2 to 5 years, remember, no one's going to buy your job. Nobody wants to buy your job. If your business cannot run without you, then it's not a business, it's a job. Make sure you are considering who is this person that's going to buy it and why would they buy it from you versus just opening their own shop. And you can say, oh, our reputation. Well, it's really easy now with social media to create a reputation, right? I can create a brand and a reputation very quickly. Try again. And you're like, okay, well, I have a great space. Okay, well, is that space designed in a way that makes sense or a way that used to make sense 10 years ago, 20 years ago? And the equipment, is it new? Of course it's not. It's probably 10, 15, 20, 30 years old. Why does somebody want to buy from you, and who is that person? Are you going to sell to another groomer? Are you going to sell to somebody who is going to just buy it and run it, and they are going to rely on your staff, right? So start thinking about all that. Yep. So Jennifer said, Candace, I was a power groomer like you, and I agree with this. And Candace said, it's people like River who have helped educate me on this. Absolutely. And that's it. I just want you guys to consider what it is that you are doing, right? And there's nothing wrong with it either way. I don't blame millennials. I don't blame Gen Z. I don't blame boomers. I believe it's Generation X. I don't blame anybody. The biggest thing is that we need to figure out how to work forward in it. And if you are expecting people to groom 2 dogs an hour, you have to pick the right people who are happy to do that forever. And it's just like a factory. Amazon can't keep people. I want to think about how much money Amazon is charging and giving people. I mean, it's crazy. I got in the mail like a $3,000 sign-on bonus to go work part-time for like $20 an hour at an Amazon warehouse. It's crazy. But they can't keep people because they treat them like crap, and it's a hard physical job. Right? It's a meaningless, hard physical job. So millennials, Gen Z especially, wants meaning, freedom, flexibility. And if your business is very rigid, is it very easy and effortless on the other side, right? If you expect me to show up Monday through Friday, 9 a.m., leave at 5 p.m., maybe not be done right away. Are the dogs easy? Are they hard? Are they done regularly? Do I have to deal with angry customers? Am I going to have to constantly be putting out fires at my job? Am I going to have lots of barking dogs? It's going to be a high stress environment. Think about it. All right, guys. So if you are interested in talking more, please sign up for my free Facebook group, Savvy Pet Professionals, right over on Facebook.com. Whoop. Hang on 1 second. You can also check me out on my brand new podcast, Gritty Bitch, where groomers stop apologizing for charging their worth. And that is actually, you can find it at my website, savvygroomer.com. And that's all for today. Today's show was all about Millennial and Gen Z groomers, thinking about, the specific challenges and how you're going to do them if you're a business owner. And there's no right or wrong answer, right? There's no right or wrong answer. It's about what it is that you value and then making sure that you can integrate this with your staff. Because these are the people who are going to be the majority of our grooming staff, right? That's it. It's going to be between the ages of 19, 18, and 42. We do have some people in their late 40s or 50s, but they're going to start retiring, guys. So let's start planning to how we're going to shift our industry to accommodate these people long term, especially as the industry has changed wildly. right? In the last 15 years, I've seen the majority of my groom dogs go from being Yorkies, Shih Tzus, Malteses to various size large doodles. So I want you to consider that. All right, guys, take it easy. As always, happy grooming.